Here is something that will change how you look at your dashboard forever. Right now, sitting somewhere on your engine block, there is a sensor smaller than your thumb that is single-handedly responsible for protecting thousands of dollars worth of precision-engineered metal. It does not look important. It does not cost much. But the moment it fails, your engine can begin destroying itself in complete silence. No dramatic warning, no loud bang, just slow, expensive, irreversible damage happening while you drive to work completely unaware. That sensor is your oil pressure sensor, and today we are going through every warning sign your vehicle throws at you before it is too late. Stay with us through all 9 because the last few are the ones most drivers completely miss. Before we get into the symptoms, you need to understand what this sensor actually does, because once you get it, everything else makes perfect sense. Oil inside your engine is not just sitting there keeping things slippery. It is a pressurized, constantly circulating protective barrier running between metal surfaces that move against each other at thousands of rotations per minute. The moment that pressure drops below a safe threshold, those surfaces make contact, and within seconds you have worn bearings, scored cylinder walls, and the beginning of an engine that is quietly dying. Your oil pressure sensor monitors that pressure in real time and sends the data straight to your dashboard. It is the only thing standing between you and a repair bill that could total more than your car is worth. So when the sensor itself starts to fail, the entire safety system collapses. Symptom number 1. Your oil pressure gauge goes absolutely crazy. If your vehicle has a dedicated analog oil pressure gauge, watch it closely. A healthy gauge holds steady within a normal operating range once the engine warms up. But when the sensor begins to deteriorate, you will see the needle doing things that make no sense, swinging from maximum pressure all the way down toward zero, then shooting back up, with no change in how the engine sounds or feels. What is happening underneath that behavior is a sensor sending unstable, corrupted voltage signals to your ECU, and the ECU faithfully translating those bad signals into dramatic gauge movement. The real danger is not the confusion in the moment. It is what happens after you see it a few times with no consequence. You start tuning it out. You start assuming it is just a quirky sensor. And that is exactly when a genuine pressure drop goes completely unnoticed. Symptom number 2. The oil warning light refuses to turn off. Your oil pressure warning light is engineered to turn off within a few seconds of startup once the system builds sufficient pressure. When a failing sensor keeps it permanently illuminated, even with clean, full oil and a mechanically sound engine, drivers fall into one of 2 destructive patterns. Some panic and start throwing money at components that are working perfectly fine. Others do the opposite, decide it must be a sensor glitch, and train themselves to ignore a light that was specifically designed to prevent catastrophic engine failure. Both outcomes are dangerous. If your oil level checks out and that light stays on, the sensor is your first suspect, not your last. Symptom number 3. The oil light flashes on and off randomly. This is the symptom that sends drivers chasing ghosts for weeks. The light appears mid-corner, disappears at idle, comes back hard under acceleration, then vanishes again on the highway. This erratic behavior happens because oil shifts position inside the engine during dynamic driving moments, and a sensor with corroded or partially failed internal contacts reacts to those shifts with random electrical misfires. It is not consistent enough to feel like a real emergency, so most people ignore it far longer than they should. Any oil light that flickers intermittently without a clear mechanical explanation needs a sensor test before anything else. Symptom number 4. A ticking or knocking sound from deep in the engine. Most drivers hear this sound and immediately assume the worst, and sometimes they are right. But here is what almost nobody considers. The reason you are hearing that knock without any prior warning light might be entirely because a failed sensor never triggered the alert it was supposed to. Insufficient oil pressure starves your hydraulic lifters, camshaft journals, and crankshaft bearings of the protective film they depend on. The ticking is those components running metal against metal. The sound is the last warning. A working sensor was supposed to be the first. If your engine starts ticking and your oil warning system has been silent, inspect that sensor immediately. Symptom number 5. Your engine starts performing strangely for no clear reason. Your ECU trusts its sensors completely. When the oil pressure sensor starts delivering readings that do not match real-world conditions, the ECU responds with full conviction. It may activate limp mode, pull back on fuel injection, alter ignition timing, or trigger a protective shutdown sequence. You experience rough idling, sluggish acceleration, unexpected power loss, random misfires, or a check engine light appearing out of nowhere. The diagnosis trail leads to the fuel system, the ignition system, the transmission, everywhere except the actual cause. Replace the sensor, clear the codes, and the engine runs exactly as it should. This symptom alone has cost drivers thousands in unnecessary diagnostics. Symptom number 6. Oil leaking around the base of the sensor. The sensor threads directly into the engine block or oil filter housing and relies on a small sealing ring or gasket to hold back pressurized oil. Heat cycling and constant vibration degrade that seal over time. You will notice oily residue building up around the sensor base, sometimes fresh and wet, sometimes baked into a dark crust from repeated heat exposure. The leak itself starts small and slow, which is exactly why it gets ignored. But that slow drip quietly depletes your oil level over weeks. Pressure drops incrementally, and by the time you spot a puddle forming under your vehicle, the engine has already been running with reduced protection for longer than you realize. Symptom number 7. Your check engine light comes on alongside oil warnings. When your check engine light activates in combination with oil-related warnings, your vehicle is handing you a diagnostic roadmap. Fault codes P0520 through P0523 all point directly at the oil pressure sensor circuit. Signal range issues, voltage reading too low, voltage spiking too high. An OBD2 scanner available at any auto parts store for under $50 will pull those codes in under 2 minutes and eliminate hours of expensive guesswork. These codes do not mean your actual oil pressure is low. They mean your sensor has lost the ability to accurately report what the pressure is, and that distinction matters enormously for how you respond. Symptom number 8. Your engine temperature starts climbing without explanation. Oil does not just lubricate. It actively carries heat away from engine components that the coolant system cannot reach directly. When a failed sensor masks a real pressure drop and your engine continues running under-lubricated, heat builds rapidly in areas that have no other way to shed it. If your temperature gauge begins rising without any obvious cooling system issue and your oil warning system has remained completely silent, a faulty sensor may be hiding the real cause. This is one of the most dangerous combinations in automotive diagnostics: an overheating engine with a false sense of security from a non-functional warning system. Symptom number 9. You smell burning oil while driving or after shutdown. That sharp, acrid smell of oil burning is one of the most instantly recognizable odors in automotive maintenance, and when it comes from a cracked or leaking oil pressure sensor, it means oil is dripping directly onto hot exhaust components. The exhaust manifold on most engines runs hot enough to ignite leaked oil on contact, creating not just a smell but a genuine fire hazard over time. Small leaks from a deteriorating sensor produce this smell consistently and progressively. Check the area around your sensor for fresh oil deposits, wetness, or dried burnt residue on nearby surfaces. Now you know what to watch for, but here is how you confirm it. Locate the sensor near the oil filter housing or engine block. Your owner's manual gives the exact position for your vehicle. Inspect the wiring connector for corrosion and looseness. Run an OBD2 scan for codes in the P0520 range. If you want a definitive mechanical answer, remove the sensor, thread in a manual oil pressure gauge, start the engine, and compare the reading against your manufacturer's specification. Normal pressure with a malfunctioning electrical sensor means the sensor is your confirmed problem. Replacement parts run between $20 and $80. Labor adds $50 to $120 at most independent shops. Compare that to a spun bearing from running low-pressure oil. That conversation starts at several $1,000s and often ends with an engine replacement. A sensor that costs less than a dinner out should never be allowed to hand you a repair bill that costs more than a used car. Stay ahead of it, know the signs, and inspect before the engine makes that decision for you. If this video gave you clarity on something most car owners never think about, hit that like button and share it with someone who drives daily without ever looking at their dashboard twice. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We drop detailed, no-filler car care content every single week built for drivers who actually want to understand what is happening under the hood. And drop a comment below right now. Tell us what country you are watching from. We read every comment and we love seeing where our community is tuning in from around the world. See you in the next one.